Greetings, human beings, and welcome to Apartment 303, a podcast for community fans. My name is Dave, and alongside my co-host Adam, we are here to discuss all things community, each and every aspect of the show, and why we love it. Joining us here in Apartment 303 today is another very special guest, and that is Dom, from the Dom and Andre in the Morning podcast. I'm sure many of our listeners are already familiar with your work, but for those who may not yet be, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks for having me. I'm Dom from, I'm one half of Dom and Andre in the Morning. We're a community-based podcast, essentially a rewatch podcast. We're going through every single episode of the show, and we especially like to talk about Dan Harmon's story circle and focus on the character growth and development, and then just a lot of very wacky sort of off-topic discussion in there as well. So it's very, very long and probably much more freeform compared to this show.
Yeah, we really wanted to see how much fun we could take out of watching Community, and by just really go with a fine-tooth comb and take a look at everything. But yeah, we're so glad to have you here, Dom. You had invited Scott and I onto your show a while back now, so we were more than happy to return the favor here. And I don't know about you, but I'm really excited about the content for today, with it being December. Of course, we want to take a look at the Christmas-themed episodes of Community, and they bring me great joy without exception, and I hope you feel the same way.
Yeah, so I went ahead and rewatched all of them today, and I think sometimes I just have a very bad memory for Community episodes. I'm often just taken off guard by what happens and just how much is encompassed. But I thought it was an absolute delight watching all of these. And one in particular, maybe I won't spoil that yet, but just took me off guard with how much I liked it.
Having that short memory, that's got to be a real blessing with a show like Community, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think Andre is probably even worse in terms of, he's seen some of these episodes as we watch them on our show for only like the second time in some cases. And usually that means he doesn't remember them at all. Like, he's shocked by like twists in episodes. And even me, I've watched through the show quite a couple times. And yeah, I don't know. It always feels so fresh to me. I think just because they're such dense episodes.
They really are. And even if you have seen them several times, there's a bunch that you can take from it. There's always more layers, and someone has put a detail, whether it's a prop in the background or just a reaction, a nonverbal reaction between cast members. Like, it's so well done and so well put together. Any episode, you're going to find something on a second time that you hadn't seen the first time. So couldn't agree more.
Yeah, and the other thing that I thought, just kind of tying into the show and in general and these episodes, is that going through the Christmas episodes is like quite a nice journey through at least the first 4 seasons of the show. Hopefully
Right.
I didn't miss one in 5 or 6. I don't think there was one that...
You did not.
It is kind of interesting that they just abandoned that after, but I can't imagine how much more room you have to run in terms of doing a Christmas special.
Yeah, and I think to that point, I've heard or read that Dan Harmon wanted to refocus on story when getting back into the things once he was at the helm of the ship again and took over in season 5, and part of that was not doing the specific time of year themed episodes and choosing to go a different route instead.
So I mean, part of the constraint in the later seasons is probably just the number of episodes they had ordered. Mm-hmm. I mean, when you've got a 25 episode season, like, why not just do a full Christmas episode? Although
Yeah.
I gotta say, I mean, to get into the actual content, I think comparative religion is way more. It's it takes place in the realm of Christmas time, but it still pretty much serves the overall story that's going on, the overall character development. It is kind of like just a cherry on top of what feels like it almost feels like the epilogue to an already complete arc in the first half of the show, but it's definitely more
Yeah.
focused still on the immediate themes of the episode.
And what I really like about that too is it follows the format. And again, for me, when Community's at its best, it's it's irreverent and funny and deep, but it's also, really adhering to the structure of college. So I
Yeah.
remember, having to go on winter break and trying to like start celebrating with my friends while I was on campus before I went back home. And like, I think it threads that needle really well. And I think it's December 10th or December 17th. I don't remember, but Shirley says that as she hits
December
someone with a
10th.
candy cane. Yeah. Okay, perfect.
And
I
which is
love that
also
so
so
much.
specific
Yeah.
to when you would actually be getting out of
Yes.
college. In fact, in Abed's Uncontrollable Christmas, they even say that it's December 9th.
Yes.
So it
Correct.
like perfectly adheres to, how it would be year to year. But I do like that. And maybe I think that's why comparative religion maybe has such like it does give me like a really warm, fuzzy feeling, is because that's like kind of like a rushed celebration haphazardly with all your friends before you kind of
Yeah.
go home and do like the real Christmas celebration.
Yeah. 100% agreed.
And it definitely, someone was just pointing this out to me. I think when I was talking to You Can't Disappoint a podcast about, we recapped season one, and they were kind of pointing out that this is so comparative religion is so out there in terms of that it's willing to tackle a kind of difficult topic for TV, which is just all these different religions intersecting.
And it's done in a way that's not only is it authentic to the cast, Donald Glover was raised a Jehovah's Witness.
Right.
And to have that continually focus on here's a wide variety of people and beliefs and faiths, that's what Community is all about. So I love that episode. And I think maybe we've built out the anticipation long enough here. We can kind of dive into the rankings, which I took a look. Actually, just came across my news feed somewhere along the line, and in 2018, the publication Decider did their Community episodes ranked in order. So I think what I'd like to do is I'd like to reveal their list,
Okay.
and then we can go over our list, and then maybe talk about a specific episode, and just go one by one that way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So Decider in 2018, we'll have the link for you here. Number 4, their least favorite was Introduction to Knots.
Not surprising.
Not surprising. Well played. I see what you did there. Number 3, they put Comparative Religion. So the season 1 episode that we both love and we're just
Okay.
talking about. Number 2, they put Abed's Uncontrollable Christmas, leaving the top spot to Regional Holiday Music.
Wow. Okay.
Go ahead.
My guess is that's probably not. If you took a popular vote of
Yeah.
Community fans, I bet that's not the ranking. So, should I? Can I share mine? Or
Oh, please do.
okay, so because I would say I bet Abed's Uncontrollable Christmas is number one for most people. So it is not for me. I mean, number 4 is, I think, Intro to Knots.
Yes.
For me, Abed's Uncontrollable Christmas is, I think, number 3. And with Comparative Religion second, I do think that the season 3 one, it's regional holiday music, right? Or you
Yes.
forgot the title. Yeah, I think that's my favorite, and I think I forgot how funny I thought that episode was. Because I think at its best, a holiday themed episode should just be really irreverent and almost out of universe. And also having seen Glee, I think that adds to the humor for me.
Yeah, so that's I'm glad that you bring that up because I have not watched Glee. I have not seen more than 60 seconds of an episode. So I am a little bit in the dark on that, but I will
Okay.
definitely say that even to someone who's just familiar with it as a popular culture, like the space that it occupied, it really strikes the right chord for me. So I love that episode so much and can certainly understand that. If I'm not mistaken, the actor who plays Abed's dad, Iqbal Teba, he has a role in Glee. Is that correct?
Oh, I think so. I remember that he's in something else I've seen, and it
Yeah,
could be Glee, but I don't.
I
Oh yeah, I
definitely
think
read that somewhere. Yeah,
he's the principal on Glee.
yeah,
I believe.
that is correct. That's correct. So that again, that could have been totally on accident, but that makes it so much better. Just how tightly wound
Mm-hmm.
the meta community universe is. So, yeah, I have no issue with your list. I like your logic and reasoning behind everything. That said, mine is different.
Okay.
So for me, Intro to Knots is 4. No surprises there. Number 3 for me is Comparative Religion, and I love that episode. It's a really good episode. Number 2 is Regional Holiday Music, which I also love, and number 1 for me is Abed's Uncontrollable Christmas.
Okay. So yeah, I'm curious to hear what I do know. This is a fan favorite, just in
Yes.
the whole show probably. So I'm curious, like, what is the appeal for you?
And it's close for me, to be perfectly honest. Abed's Uncontrollable Christmas and Regional Holiday Music are close. Regional Holiday Music is funnier. You get more laughs out of that episode, no doubt about it.
Mm-hmm.
And we see Professor Duncan is back, which I love any excuse to listen to John Oliver's voice. And it's wonderful. But the artistry that goes into it, I don't find myself researching more and more about any of the other episodes on this list. But last night I stayed up until way too late in the morning trying to
Okay.
find out everything that I could about Abed's Uncontrollable Christmas. And I found an oral history and how just amazing it was. The whole process of how it got started was an executive at NBC said, kind of like in an offhanded way, oh, yeah, you guys should totally do an animated episode of Community. Which, Dan Harmon and Dino, I can't pronounce his last name, who plays Starburns.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, who's also, involved creatively speaking with the show, not just a side character.
Mm-hmm.
He said, "Hey, Dan, we should totally do a stop motion episode." And this is a point that I know is divisive amongst community fans. I know Jen from the Community Rewatch podcast doesn't tend to like quote unquote gimmick episodes, and I can see why someone would say that's what this is. And I totally get that. I respect that point of view. But when it's done with all of the love that this episode was, like the original Bass Rankin films, the Year Without a Santa Claus and all of those, like it just took
Mm-hmm.
me completely back to when I was a kid growing up. And again, it's an homage from a place of love, not, like, oh, we're kind of making fun of what this looked like or how it was. And all of everything that went into it was just the production of that episode was unbelievable. It takes so long to animate stop motion, and you get like 10 set, like a good day on set of stop animation motion gives you like 10 seconds. And like that's what you take home
Oh
at the end of
yeah.
the day. So it's wild to have that and have a story that makes sense around it, you know, to have
Yeah.
it be through Abed's lens. And, it's called Abed's Uncontrollable Christmas, of course. And I'm a sucker for stories that are Abed centric as well. So there's just like this confluence of everything just hits the right note for me. And it's so deeply meaningful and it's about something really important. When Abed feels like his family is moving on without him, that's so deep and so heartfelt. And it really gives him a third dimension to his character. I just, it's hard for me to say that I like any other Christmas episode more than that.
Yeah. No, I definitely see that, and I can see it as a litmus test between, I mean, really those top three episodes, the first, three Christmas episodes. I think that could serve as really a litmus test for what's important to you on Community, because I think
Absolutely.
if the plot is like your number one priority, you would probably just like Comparative Religion. If you like the humor or like just the wackiness, you would probably like Regional Holiday Music. And then if you like the heartfelt moments or even, maybe some of the out of format stuff, like that's like kind of a good mix. I definitely see that. It has a lot of moments that I like, but this is just always one that even on I thought maybe if I paid more attention to it today, I would like it more.
Hmm.
But in terms of serving the show, other than I see how it's like a very heartfelt homage, but it just I don't know, so like something is just slightly off about it to me, and I can't put my finger on like quite what it is. It's possible like I am just averse to like the animation style and like I write it off. I'm not sure. It does have some interesting moments. One thing that like stuck out to me is there's a Abed and Pierce moment, which
Yeah.
in the whole run of the show almost never happens. But I think it's maybe just like people sometimes like call me out for this, that they're like, this in all of the things that happens in Community, this is what's too far for you. Because when I was ranking the Halloween episodes with some of the Community podcasters, I said that I bump the zombie episode down because it exceeds my kind of sphere of belief,
Right.
in that it's real events, because they double down and really say this really happened. And
Yeah.
that's kind of where this episode sits with me too. Is season 2, I think on a couple of occasions went just ever so slightly too far. And this feels like one of them, where it's just too like in the red of being just an insane thing to happen.
I felt that way in season 3 with like the Chang Dynasty episodes toward the end. So I don't know if that does it for you or not, but
No, I do feel that way. And it's
yeah.
hard because like that's like probably one of my main criticisms of season 3, and I don't know
Yep.
that I would get rid of it because I think it's still good. But it's just why it's like I think it's still cool that we got those moments, but they're just not my favorite in the long run, because somehow it feels like it sullies the show when you feel like it went just a smidge too far.
So that's kind of a losing a forest for the tree type example for you then.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, I can
And
totally see that.
it's interesting, like, I said it's kind of also it shows the progression of the show, because what's amazing about going through this is how every season the show is actually getting darker.
Oh
Other
yeah.
than, with maybe the exception of Knots, because obviously since that's sort of outside of Harmon, but and obviously 5 and 6 are darker than the 4 previous seasons for sure. But you can see that slow slide away from optimism in some ways.
Yeah,
Like
definitely.
how the characters are almost punished for being optimistic, and the moral almost becomes like all we have is each other, and then eventually each other goes away too. So it's
Right.
very very dark. Like it's almost a summation of the whole slide of the show. Just the fact that Abed's Uncontrollable Christmas is a very honest and respectful homage, and then Regional Holiday Music is this biting parody.
Yeah, absolutely. In some ways, to me, it's I'm just kind of thinking like I don't know if you had this when you grew up, but I've seen people will take pictures of their kids. They're wearing some certain thing. It's like an oversized clothes, right? And then every year they keep taking pictures until eventually they fit into it, and then they're too big for it or whatever. Like that's kind of what you're describing. Just checking in. It's like a time capsule. Once a year, we check and see And I think you used the phrase litmus test earlier relative to what people like. And I just really think it's a good way to sort of check where are we in terms of Dan Harmon's descent into total nihilism.
Yeah, no, that's so true. And even I do want to like touch on the season 4 episode. I don't want to
Well,
like
yeah, well, let's
completely write it
start
off
there. Yeah. Let's dig into that one here.
because it's, I mentioned it's sort of, it feels like it's a slide towards darkness, and then that one is like sort of in a weird place where it does almost seem like it's going to be really dark and like in a Chang Dynasty 2 wacky kind of way. And it ends up being okay, I guess. It's just very strange because it's also like as you're watching through, I don't know why, but I always notice the lighting changes when I skip
Yeah.
from one season of Community to the other. And season 4, the weirdest thing, the lighting is definitely different, but also there are so many close-up shots. The framing is so weird. Every shot in that episode is like character's face, character's face. It goes to Troy, it goes to Britta, it goes to the professor.
Yeah, except for
And
that first scene, which I do like. It's that one of the very few examples we see of a really long, uncut shot, which is kind of cool. But yeah.
oh yes, I didn't remember that as I didn't think of that, about that as I was watching it.
Oh, no,
But
yeah, I had totally forgotten about it until I watched it today. Yeah.
yeah, and I remember hearing some of the cast talk about how difficult that was. And now I'm realizing that's probably why some of their acting is kind of off, because I was listening to Joel do some of the lines in the beginning of that episode, and I'm like, this isn't terrible writing. And in fact, I think the bones of a good, at least as good as a bottle episode can be, are there. But just the shot composition and like the line delivery really throws me off in some of it.
Yeah.
Once they get out of some of that dumb like exposition stuff, like where Jeff is like, "What? A failing grade? I
Yeah.
need to graduate." Like, it mostly goes okay from there. But there's just some of those season 4 hallmarks that throw you off, like the Chang Kevin thing. This is the one time they use the dean living next door.
Right.
So this is again like, it's more of a story episode, which is like the other season 4 consequences. It's like you would probably not enjoy watching this one in isolation. This is probably much better watched as part of season 4, where all the others stand pretty strongly alone, I think. It is so interesting though that you can go through this series and just get like a little slice of each season, but also just enjoy this kind of usually standalone story. And that's part of what hurts the season 4 episode, not only as a Christmas, or not only as an episode of the show, but as a Christmas episode, is most of these you could just tell someone who doesn't even like the show to just watch them. And
Yeah.
that's also goes back to why I like the season 3 episode so much. And not to mention, you were talking about the stop motion in Abed's Uncontrollable Christmas, but the original songs in this are, I think, really good. One of them is basically just like an old Childish Gambino song,
Right.
Um,
Right.
I think the Baby Boomer Santa is delightful, although I don't know, like,
I
Chevy Chase is singing in like a really odd tone when he joins in. Like, it doesn't sound like him.
Yeah, no, I reference Baby Boomer Santa probably at least twice a day. Anytime I ever tell someone you're welcome, I do it as Pierce Hawthorne.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that song is brilliant, and we could literally do an entire episode of the podcast just dedicated to that song. It's so good.
Yeah, there's a lot to break down there. By the way, that reminds me of another thing I noticed is, we just got to season 2 on our show, like I said, and
Right.
I've noticed going from the season 1 episodes to the season 2 episodes, every time I like look through the wiki article, and not like the fan wiki, but the just normal Wikipedia pages for these episodes for season 2 and 3 are so detailed in comparison to season 1, and also in
Yeah.
comparison to season 4. Like the season 1 and season 4 episodes are like just a brief synopsis, who wrote it, the season 2 and season 3 episodes, people have written like a whole theme section.
Yeah.
They wrote about the production, who wrote all the songs. Like, it's so detailed and so crazy. And I think it's that people like them more, and I think there's also more to dig into. You can dig into how these songs were written, the fact that not only did they parody Glee, but they one-upped Glee in that they didn't do song covers. They actually wrote
Yep.
full original songs that still somehow work in the story. And they also are parodying the teacher on Glee with the Mr. Rad character.
Oh, Taron Killam is so perfect in that role.
Yeah. But yeah, and it's also it's interesting because you even see how, like, across these 4 episodes, it's like, how does Jeff and Annie's relationship change? And
yeah.
you obviously have the weird sexually charged Annie song. And then,
Scott had a few words to say about that, and he didn't like it. And I agree that you probably shouldn't like it, but I think the fact that it satirizes so bitingly that happening, like, I think it's hilarious. I crack up every time.
yeah, it's like an indictment of their own, like, the strangeness of the age difference. It's also making fun of that type of, like, weird Christmas song, like those
Yeah.
baby Christmas songs.
Yeah, and to a lesser extent, that what's that one? It's my least favorite Christmas song, Santa
Is it?
Baby, which
Yeah, yep.
is written by Eartha Kitt, and it's just like, oh my gosh, that couldn't be more
Oh,
perfect.
that's so funny. Yeah.
There's so many tight circles brought together with that, but yeah, totally agree.
Yeah, and it also, I mean, that scene also gives us the "is this a bit?" line
Oh
from
my
Jeff,
gosh.
which is just
Oh
like
yeah,
has got to be one of my favorite. Just, it's so simple, but it's just like his face says it all, and that's just it's such a perfect, like, moment for, like, a GIF, just
oh
because
yeah.
that's how I feel whenever anything strange is happening in my life.
Yeah, and I want to latch on to something there real quickly as a point of comparison. That is so cartoonishly over the top, just ridiculous that it's obviously a
Yes.
send up, right? Comparing that to Introduction to Knots in season 4 in general, Annie is like cartoonishly in love with Jeff, but not in a way that is so far off the rails that you can tell it's a send up. And that kind of bugs me because I think Annie's better than that. To
Yeah.
be just that smitten with anyone over a long period of time. Obviously, it happens in short bites here and there in the first couple of seasons. But yeah, to me, I think it's funny in this scene in regional holiday music, but it's less funny when it's 75% of that and over the course of a whole
Yeah.
season.
Well, yeah, it's in season 3 it's more of a joke. But then in season 4, Jeff even has a line in Introduction to Knots about, what did I say about playing house?
Right, right.
Like, it's sort of Annie trying to be an adult now that she's going to be, like, out of college. It seems to be, like, the theme they're exploring there. Again, it's like so many things in season 4 are just, like, so close to hitting, I think.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
all the right bones are there.
And that makes it
But
all the more frustrating too, I think, because like it is so close. And a
right.
couple things different here and there, people would not have hated this season as much as they did. But it was frustratingly close, I would say.
And even just the adjustment of it's so weird that Knots is in Jeff's apartment. It could have been in Troy and Abed's apartment. It could have been in the study room. Just anywhere but Jeff's apartment. Like, the unfamiliar set makes it somehow, like, even more foreign.
And is that the only time we see Jeff's apartment in the run of the series? I think it is.
I think so, because at the beginning of season 4 they set up that Jeff has moved in I can't even remember why he's moving off the top of my head. Maybe there's like some obvious plot point I'm forgetting, but he moves in next to the dean, or the dean
Right.
like got the apartment right next to his on purpose or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
What about when
And
Chang stays with him?
oh, that's right.
Yep,
That's right.
good call. We glanced right
Um,
over that one. Yep.
I actually sort of remember, yeah, I sort of remember liking that Chang staying with him bit.
Yeah, that was Valentine's Day in season 2.
Season 2, yeah. If we struggle to even remember that happened, then clearly, and if it's 2 seasons ago, then it's just weird to go there all of a sudden. Troy and Abed's apartment, you're like, oh, this is weird. We're like consistently off campus, but it works so well, and you just like get used to it since it's consistent. It's weird to have what feels like is supposed to be like a consequential episode. It's setting up like Britta and Troy breaking up even in this set that we're just like not used to.
Right, yeah.
And not to mention for a whole bottle episode. I guess maybe
Right.
they were just like eager to get out of doing stuff in the study room.
That could be, and I think it does try to set up well. Jeff is trying to appeal to this sensibility of their British teacher played. I think Malcolm McDowell did a really good job with that role. Yeah, no complaints there. But yeah, I think it was kind of maybe designed as a way to show how Jeff's trying too hard in a way that we see later on with Elroy, but to much more comedic effect.
Yeah, that's definitely an interesting point between like him and Elroy, which I always like to bring up. But one thing that actually reminds me of one thing that I feel like I should mention, kind of an elephant in the room in the season 4 episode, is the absence of Pierce.
Yeah.
And I think this is his true exit, actually, in terms of production. And it's one of those things where sometimes when an actor leaves a show midway through a season, and they figure out how to cover it up, but they clearly had episodes written and have to fix it in really dumb ways. So it's also
Yeah.
possible that is part of what is hurting this episode, is there's cut lines that have to be filled, and
Yeah.
they have a dumb reason for why he's not there, like he's doing
Sensitivity training with Gilbert, right.
right,
Which
and
is it's fine for a punchline, but it can't possibly replace what they would have had in the episode,
exactly.
even if you don't
And
like the character.
that's another thing you see in these episodes, is the trajectory of Pierce. I think season 1 Pierce is maybe actually, it fluctuates, but is sometimes his worst, because they did try to soften him over time. And in the season 3 episode, he's just like a friendly old man who's part of the group, basically. And even kind of in Abed's Uncontrollable Christmas.
Yeah.
But, it's like he's kind of harsh and weird, and then he's mean, but he softens up a little bit eventually, and then he's not there.
Yeah. In Abed's Uncontrollable Christmas, he says that he is staying because there's cookies, but he doesn't leave, and he hangs out with Abed because there's no one to be with to celebrate the holiday. So you can actually feel sympathy for Pierce in that moment. So yeah, that's a really good point.
Right, and I really enjoy that moment, actually.
I love it, yeah.
I don't care for I feel like the part that's supposed to be the emotional climax of this doesn't resonate with me for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
And also Duncan popping in for some reason like takes me also out of it. Like we can't like focus in on what's going on with the group. I think that's like I get taken out of the emotional component of it because you're constantly distracted by everything that's going on, and they're popping in, and it doesn't feel real because you can tell like they're just sitting in a voice booth doing these lines.
Wait, hold on. You mean to tell me you've never experienced a Christmas pterodactyl? That's a family tradition in our household. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I mean, I was raised weird, I guess, but something about that moment on the train with Pierce and Abed like gets me in a weird way. I should mention though, the thing I like about both season 2 and season 3, I think it's great that they make the characters sing. Something about like having musical numbers just occasionally, randomly on a
Yeah.
non-musical show where not every cast member is a trained singer is like really funny to me, and I don't know why. I
It
love it every
definitely,
time it
yeah,
happens.
it definitely is. And I think if we had to rank the singing ability of the characters on Community, I'm not going to go one by one, but Jeff and slash Joel, Chevy slash Pierce, and Britta slash Gillian are in the bottom tier, and
For
then
sure.
everyone else is in the top tier. I mean, yeah, you could convince me that Yvette Nicole Brown. I don't know if she is classically trained or not, but she sounds wonderful.
Yeah, she
Annie and
actually is. I think she was like going to be a recording artist
I believe
originally.
that. Yeah, but
And
you to oh, go ahead, go ahead.
yeah, I was just gonna say. I mean, it's interesting that Donald doesn't actually get to sing a lot, and I mean, Donald is now like more known as a singer than he is a
Yeah,
rapper. I mean, his voice is incredible. So I mean, he's
yeah,
definitely sort of next. And then I
yeah.
think
Oh, and Danny,
Dan,
we forgot to put him in the top tier too.
I think Danny is probably somewhere in the middle. His voice
Okay,
sounds really nice, but I think they also just give him easy stuff to sing. I
easy
think they
stuff. And
just
when there's a harmony, for sure. Yeah.
right. Yeah, he can hit those like high harms,
Yep.
but
Yep.
they just know Joel is bad and they just like revel in it.
Yeah. And I guess to get back to your favorite regional holiday music, we talked about Annie's song, we talked about Chevy's song, and I love, and the one that gets me more than I think it will every time is when Pierce brings in the choir to sing to
Yep.
Shirley. And so, quick note here. It bugs me a little bit when they play Shirley's character as such a one note Christian that's the only thing that's important and condescending. But it's so funny when the kids sing to her. That is
I
just
know. I know.
comedic genius.
Yeah, I mean, I'm bouncing around these so much, but it's just like I keep remembering, oh, there's this
Yeah,
thing in this
yeah,
episode. It's like hard to even tackle these all at once. But like the fact that it is in the first place that Glee is like a disease that they're
yeah,
spreading and infecting each other with.
yeah, yeah.
And but yeah, I think the other thing about this though is the what gets each character in
Oh,
is
yeah.
so funny because it's
Yep.
essentially a distillation of like what is their character's vice or like weakness. You know, Abed's is like, oh, it's like this crazy like one-off TV thing we get to do. You know,
Mm-hmm.
Jeff's is basically sex appeal.
Right.
Like Shirley's is, oh no, they're not going to teach the kids about Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
And Donald's or sorry, I slipped out of character there. Troy's is his friendship with Abed.
right. And then Chevy's is, or now I'm
Yeah,
doing the same thing.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But Pierce's is like, I think Annie like directly states it, is
Yep.
they're like appealing to his historical like vanity.
Yeah, they're well
And
documented baby boomer vanity, definitely.
right, yeah. And yeah, I always love when Community plays with those ideas of like, what does each character bring to the equation? Like, if you did boil this person down to one characteristic, what is it? What is their most base characteristic that they cannot fight, basically?
And in some ways, it harkens back to the season one episode when Abed tells the future about what people are going to do, and he predicts that Shirley would run away from a werewolf. It's like, this is a
Oh
completely
yeah.
unreasonable thing to happen.
He's a
But hey,
witch.
yeah, yeah, he's a soothsayer. Yeah, so they come back to like Dan Harmon is putting real people in completely unrealistic situations. And oh, yeah, here's how they would react if you had to form a glee club to save your community college chances to go to regionals.
Right. Right. Well, and that's like what Abed is upset about in the end is that it's not just going to be a one-off thing. He doesn't want this
Yeah.
to be a continued thing, which is kind of ironic and like very weirdly Abed. Like I feel like Abed's character, if he was watching Community, he would have so much to say about what happens in season 4. And obviously he gets some meta digs in the later seasons about that.
Right.
But yeah, it's almost premonition in a way that he does kind of predict that sort of fate for season 4. And also the end of that episode, I should mention the other incredible line from that episode is oh, Britta's in this?
That is, in addition to Jeff saying, "Is this a bit?" Those are two of the best lines. And it would be impossible to rank the top 100 lines from Community, but those two are definitely in that list.
I think you could probably rank it by how often the GIF of each line gets used on the internet, and I'm sure some, data scientist that's into Community will do that eventually.
I think you've just given me something to do over Christmas break here. That's for sure.
So ultimately, I mean, sometimes I am critical of when Community just goes for pure comedics or pure parody and nothing else.
Yeah.
But I think ultimately what will always get me about an episode of Community is, are they playing to the characters' strengths and or weaknesses, really? And I think that's an overall theme of season 3 is, things are getting darker. We're like more divided than ever. Maybe it's just an episode that resonates with me more in 2020 than ever.
Yeah.
Is we just do need this brief sort of delusion. Abed, just wants to entertain this delusion that everything is okay. And in a way, it's the same lesson as season 2. It's that you can't live in that delusion. You have to like break free of it. And that's sort of the thesis statement of season 2 is that like the holiday season is just this delusion in between a horrible dark season.
Yeah, and maybe even you could argue that regional holiday music demonstrates that Abed has gotten over that, where he was stuck in that in Abed's Uncontrollable Christmas. So maybe that does actually show some nice character growth as well.
Yeah, it's almost like he's making a choice. He learned that lesson, and now he's like making that choice rather than being forced into it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd buy that.
I think the one other thing, I guess, sort of probably the end of my thoughts on Abed's Uncontrollable Christmas is I do think it's nice that they do get some like what I would call like character distillation in there through what each person becomes and their little song. I'm sure, you could spend hours just deconstructing that. But I do think it's interesting that they chose to bring up Abed's family again at that point. There's one thing I think Community could have dug into more with every character, is it would be interesting to dig more into their past and home lives. Like, they have varying degrees of success with each character.
Yeah, we never see Annie's parents. All we know is that they're a little bit racist, right?
Right. Well, and which is too bad because Annie has one of the more compelling and like well-defined backstories, I think. But
And how great of a backstory for that is, just on a sitcom on Thursday night. Like, yeah, she was addicted to pills. What? Like, that's awesome to be able to give that person a story in a space.
And that's really like the moral of like all of these episodes is that like, except maybe the season 4 one is just kind of a divergence, but it is about like, let's give everyone a space. Let's let Britta sing her stupid song. Let's let every religion have a seat at the table, even if it's like hard to reconcile our different beliefs.
Or lack of religion. Don't forget Jeff and Britta.
Yeah, that's true. yeah, I mean, they explore so many interesting things just over the course of these 4 episodes that are overall not related. Again, probably with the exception of the fourth one, not related to the episodes around it too strongly, because Abed's family seems like it'll be a really important thing early on,
Yeah.
but then sort of gets dropped. And this is just
Yeah.
bringing that back in to kind of almost wrap it up forever.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, that was a very fun ride going back and forth, careening on a sleigh between episodes. But I enjoyed that format and seeing, I always enjoy seeing the interrelatedness between episodes and concepts across time rather than just treating each episode as a discrete thing, even though that's how I tried to set it up earlier in the episode here.
I'm
Uh,
sorry.
no, I enjoy it and I have more fun, and naturally that's kind of my proclivity as well. So overall, I think comparing Community then to other TV shows, I really like these episodes even more than your standard fare for a generic sitcom, the Christmas episodes that you get. So where do you rate Community overall in terms of the quality of its Christmas and other holiday episodes?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, I think holiday episodes are normally on like a watch through of a show, almost a. I'm someone who has to watch everything, and if I were like rewatching a show, a lot of times it'd almost be like a complete skip,
Yeah.
because I think that's what the worst of the holiday episodes in Community are, is the moments where you're like, okay, yeah, it's just like a Christmas special, whatever. Like, this isn't important to watching the show. Also, I'm watching this, it's August. Like, I don't want to watch this.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
This, like, think about the holidays. And so I think it does it so much better. And it also points out like the fake parts of Christmas, the fake snow and comparative religion, and the
Yep.
fact that it's all just like a delusion. And but yeah,
It's December 10th.
exactly.
Yeah.
It totally subverts. It does a Christmas episode while also doing an all religions episode, while also
Yeah.
doing the story. It does all of this at once, and
Yeah.
it is cool to connect them. I mean, I'm sorry for bouncing around so much, but like my
Oh gosh,
brain
not
is
at
just
all.
like I've got all the Polaroids on a cork board in my brain, and I'm like connecting the strings. Like, it's all related.
So, Dom, you know that Arizona is spelled backwards the same way as it is forwards, right? It's a
Oh
palomino.
my god. what what did you call it?
A palomino. That's what Chang says in. Oh gosh, there's a season 3 episode. It's the one where he's living in the back room and he's got the leg of the mannequin, and he does his cork
Oh yeah,
board.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I certainly agree. These episodes in Community are a little bit more integral to the story. You can't take it out, and I'm speaking out of the side of my mouth here because I don't know enough about like the show Friends, for instance. You could probably totally skip the Christmas episode and not be missing anything story wise. And that's true for something like Frasier as well. So those, kind
hmm
of classic sitcoms from when I was growing up, they're just not necessarily there. And you bring up a great point too. When you had to fill out a 25 episode order for a season, you were expected to do that or had the time and ability to do it. But anymore, if you've got 13 episodes in a season or something like that, it's
hmm
just not realistic.
And I think the last, I mean, probably like my final thought about it all is, I think part of why I'm more able to watch, and maybe this is even why Abed's Uncontrollable Christmas bothers me in some regard, is I feel like I can watch these in any season because there's not real snow on the ground in
Yeah.
them. I don't know why, but like sometimes I feel like watching a Christmas episode outside of Christmas makes me sad. And I think the fact that the only snow you see is like the fake snow in, or at least outside of Abed's Uncontrollable Christmas, like the when they go to the
Yeah.
world, but is like the fake snow from the snow machine, and Jeff is like walking by it, which makes it even funnier that they eventually decide to set the show in Colorado,
Right.
because
Yeah.
if
Where
the
there
show
would
was
be
set in
snow. Yeah.
Colorado, Yeah, they would have a foot of snow.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, well, that's awesome. That was such a fun recap of the episodes and how, again, they were all related and what we liked and disliked and wish were different about them. So thanks so much for spending the time with us here, Dom. And is there anything that you want to plug? Obviously, you and Andre have that wonderful podcast that you've continued to do. Anything else that you want to share with our listeners here before we attempt to reconvene with you somewhere down the road?
Yeah, check out Dom and Andre in the morning wherever podcasts are found.
And you're on season 2 now, so if folks
getting
were
into
avoiding
season
season 1, check them out now.
And that officially concludes Season 1 of Apartment 303. Has Adam, having missed the childish tycoon, converted his van into a live-in camper dreamatorium in which he plans to roam the country? Will Dave be emerging from the booth to co-host in Season 2, or leaving this timeline entirely to produce Roundtable Report, his new World of Warcraft podcast? Has Scott been kidnapped or recruited by Dean Sprecht of City College to coach their cross-country team, which, in its current form, does not exist? Find out the answers to all of these questions and more on New Year's Day in Season 2 of Apartment 303.